As I teased earlier, Treasure Valley spring outdoor activities for those of us in the Treasure Valley in the southern part of the state. This last week gave us a very playful taste of spring and summer to come. Hopefully it doesn't pull the rug out from underneath us because, welcome to Idaho, which I know for myself got me thinking about getting out and enjoying it. And so I wanted to make this last story one to share some activities that you guys could do outside in the wonderful weather, plus some that actually are best done in the spring. A lot of people think, oh, it's spring, it's not time. But no, really, there's some activities that are really best done in the spring rather than the summer when it gets a little bit more toasty. So with that said, I made a list here for you guys, and I will check it over to John to start off with our first one that's over in the Boise area.
Yeah, so if you're in the Boise area, like Tyler said, something that's really close to you is the MK Nature Center. It's located right by the Idaho Department of Fish and Game headquarters. That's downtown, yeah?
Close to it. It sits there along the Greenbelt. It's not like in downtown, but
but it's just a little bit further. I just opened up the map and looked at it. No, that's cool. So I know my wife and kids have gone to that several times, and they always come back really
super
talking
fun.
about. Yeah, they've talked about how great it is. So it has walking paths. There's a pond stocked with lots of fish that you can see from the paths above the pond, which is awesome. It's fun to watch fish do.
They've got like a huge sturgeon in there too. That's really cool. I know the more male members of the family will love, look at that. I want to catch that. How do I get down there? You're like, no.
Right. I know there are several places in the city that you can do some fishing. So that would be another thing that could be added to this list.
I think Park Center Park can do that. That's over on that end of town as well. And then there's a pond that's right off of Eagle Road. I can't remember the crossroad there, but there's a park when you're traveling on Eagle Road North.
I think the one you might be thinking the McDevitt Fields or the McDevitt Sports Complex there at Eagle and McMillan.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that one is a really cool one. It's kind of a smaller pond, but It is pretty awesome. Bridging off of that, there's also a little skate park at the McDevitt Sports Complex. Okay. There are several skate parks throughout the city that are quite awesome if your kids are into that. But what's an even better family activity I've found, and we've done this with our kids a couple times, there's the Boise Bike Park. There's Fort Boise Park.
Okay.
Kind of up by
almost up by Camel's Back or the old penitentiary.
It's towards the old penitentiary.
Okay.
If you go up Broadway and just keep going up and then take a right when it goes on its little roundabout, then the Boise Bike Park is right there.
Okay. Which, on that topic of bikes, there's also the Greenbelt. That's another great resource that connects to a ton of stuff in the valley. So, if you're sitting there and worried that your kid's still learning how to bike and you don't want to take them to a park or something, the Greenbelt's also a really good option.
Yeah, or just bike and cover distance, then that could also be a fun thing. It's a way to change things up. And speaking of bike parks, I know there are several. There's one up in Eagle, I believe, and one in Meridian somewhere. Yeah. So another one, and I don't remember if you mentioned this earlier, but if you're further on the west end of the valley, there's the Rotary Pond Park. It's located off of Centennial Way in Caldwell. It's got a paved path that goes around the pond. And if you have your fishing license, then you can also go fishing with your family. So
this is one of those that's good to do in the spring, wink, wink, mainly because come fall and summer, there will be more mosquitoes. They like to be out in full force there, but there's like a really big field next to it. So if the kids want to do like soccer or something, they can do that, or football. But then if you want to go walk on this path, it goes around the lake. And there's even a couple docks if you want to put a canoe out on it.
Top of the pond, there's the archery range. There's also a shotgun club out that direction. So some cool stuff in that area.
Oh yeah. It's a really cool place to go, and they've kept it rather rural.
Nice. The pictures, the ponds are green, so hopefully they're not when you're there.
Yeah, there again, as I said, go in spring. This is one of those I recommend spring, not late summer to fall. Also on the pond kind of train of thought and the western end of the valley, there's Wilson Springs Pond, which is similar to the MK Nature Center. It's located there in Nampa when you go like a little further south and east of Lake Lowell. They've got some nice paths to walk around. The main difference if you're trying to choose between Rotary or the Wilson Springs is the Rotary one has a lot more big, mature, deciduous trees, and there's going to be a lot more shade. But the Wilson one, it's not paved, but the gravel is a lot smoother in a sense there. There isn't quite as much shade, but it's more about the water feature. There's pond/river system that goes through there, so you can see ducks and geese, and they might even have some swans in there. I can't remember. So that also is a really great option if you're in the Nampa area to just take walks. I've always enjoyed, especially going there in dusk. I think they have a couple owls that live out there as well. So that can be kind of a fun field trip to do with the kids.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So those are like ponds and, I don't know, more leisurely things. If you're wanting to get into more hiking type stuff, there are any number of places that are really close as you get up into the foothills. Camel's Back Park is a fun one. There's a main path that goes up, and then there's a bunch of paths that branch out and around, and it's a lot of fun. There's also a big playground there. I will say that's a place that gets pretty darn jam-packed on the weekends.
Yep.
So if you're not a fan of crowds, then Camel's Back Park probably isn't your place to go, but it is a cool place to go and see.
It's a good place to practice if you're trying to get ready for the hiking season that you've been
That's true.
all winter. It's a good place because there's a lot of different level of hiking trails. There's the really easy ones where there again you can take a stroller on it. But if you want to go for it, there's also a lot of trails there at Camel's Back that you can definitely work up a sweat, build some exercise, but you don't have to drive too far from the Boise metropolitan. You can practically almost bike if you live anywhere in Boise to it.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place.
And then Table Rock is another one that we alluded to. It's over there by the old penitentiary. People know where that is. You can search that. That's a really enjoyable hike to do. When you get up there in Table Rock where they have the cross and stuff, you can see the whole Treasure Valley almost. You can see Boise at least. But I wanted to add it in this list specifically because if you go in the middle of summer, it will be very, very hot. And there's barely any shade on the trail. So the best times to usually go is in the spring because there's a bunch of wildflowers that are usually blooming up there. It's green, it's lush. You don't have a lot of the prickly stuff that'll get in your socks.
Yeah, no, we did that one, I think, a couple of years ago now, and it was a lot of fun. It was fun getting up there. And at this point, the kids see the cross, and they'll point to it and be like, oh, the cross, we were up there. We know that place. Wow. So those moments are always fun as a parent to be able to remind your children of those experiences that they've had.
Right.
So, yeah, no, Table Rock's definitely a good one. The next on the list that you've got here is Jump Creek. And this is one that I know you've talked about quite a bit. I've not gotten out there yet. I need to.
Yeah, it for people that are feeling left out in the western part of the valley, because Boise shunts right up there to the mountains. There is still a lot of cool stuff you can do out to the west. The main premier one of the western part of the valley would be Jump Creek. There's a really easy 15 to 18 minute hike that just goes straight through the canyon to the falls there. And this is one also, I would say it's good all year long. The only time I would say it's not is the middle of winter because it can get windy out there because there's no timber on the top parts. And so you can kind of get frozen out, especially even there in the canyon. But early spring, it's pretty to go. You can hike in there. All the trees in the canyon will be blooming and stuff. And you can see the beautiful rock because the rain usually keeps it cleaner. And so those beautiful colors off the rock are a lot brighter. But if you are someone who wants a little bit more challenging, you can hike above the falls and go back and then come behind them and come in that way, which is a little bit more arduous.
Okay.
It can take an hour plus sometimes. I actually have not fully completed that trek yet just because of time commitment. But yeah, likewise on that side of town, for those who want to just go all out. The best place overall for the valley I would recommend is over by the Owyhee Mountains, mainly because of the fact that there's a lot of really great hiking trails. The rocks are really pretty there again, similar with Jump Creek, because Jump Creek's in that same direction of where the Owyhee Mountain Range is. But going out there in the spring is probably the best time because, one, there's not a lot of shade, so you want it to be cooler when you're out there so you don't fry on the rocks. And then number two, some of the views, because there isn't any trees, are so long and wide. When you have that fresh green spring grass, you can see the wind coming up some of the valleys and gullies up towards you with the mountain as the wind's moving the grasses. And so it's a really cool place to go over in the early spring. But anywho, there's tons of cool things you can do any part of the state, any time of year. But if you're wanting to find more resources about this, specifically the trails over in the Owyhees or up by Bogus, there's an app that I found that's been really great called All. The best way I'd have to describe it is it's like the Google Maps for trails. There's a paid and there's a free version. So the free version, you can open it up on your browser, you can download the app and stuff. But with both of those, it will require internet. So you can print off a map of the trail before you go. But with the paid app, you're actually able to download the map onto your phone or digital device, and it'll actually use the GPS to show you as you're going along the trail, and you can map your altitude and different stuff. So for the paid thing, you get a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more integration to have all that. But if you just want to discover new trails and you're willing to print out the map before you go, and you have the location put into your GPS or your TomTom or whatever you want to use to get there, that's a really, really great resource to discover stuff.
Cool.